supporting HBCU Dash for all things HBCU sports. From institutions large and small, from the NEIA to the NCAA, we share insights and information on the HBCU sports coach, HBCU athletic aesthetics to facilitate the story of HBCU athletic programs in the business of HBCU sports. I'm your host, Dr. Cavil, along with my co-hosts, Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. We're filming from our home studios and sending a signal live to our KCOH 1230 AM studios with the Texas Radio Hall of Famer, multi-Hall of Famer Ralph Cooper in a beautiful home at Texas Southern University from Houston, Texas. With that being said, Charles, how you doing today?
Doing well, Doc. Doing well despite all. Hanging in there, but a little tough afternoon for me. Lost my four-legged friend this afternoon, my dog. He's been with me since I moved into the neighborhood, showed up the second day I moved into my house. So he's been with me for four years now, and kind of lost him today. So this is a tough afternoon for me.
Certainly, we understand one thing to lose anybody, anything, but certainly tough when you lose man's best friend. So understand how you're dealing with that in terms of that. So all will be with you in terms of supporting you through this time. With that being said,
appreciate that.
Oh, no doubt. With that being said, AD Drew, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fine. My CIAA tournament binge watching was interrupted by a text from one Dr. J. Kenyatta Cavil about 15 minutes ago. Bro, can you come on today? So I guess Tuesday's been my pinch hitting night. You know, last Tuesday I pinch hit for Bo Carter and Roy and Miles basketball, and today I get to pinch hit for Mike. And so if you see me looking down, Dr. Cavil, the iPad is right here, so I can keep up with the CIAA tournament.
No doubt. I appreciate you pinch hitting, as you said, getting it done. Today's episode of Inside the HBCU Sports Lab is sponsored by THG Agency, LLC. THG Agency is a company that provides sporting and educational and consulting and data analytics. With that being said, since you're the guest of the day, although you've been here often, but we still don't treat you in proper stead. AD Drew, why don't you kick us off with some news of the day?
Well, I'm just going to keep it real simple, Dr. Cavil. I just want to talk about this CIAA tournament, man, the granddaddy of them all. And I know this is not necessarily on the script, but I believe of the 5 games they played thus far, they played 2 yesterday, they've completed today, and there's a game going on right now. And every stinking game has been competitive, no matter what the seeds are, men or women. And the first full day of action, we've already had our first overtime, Dr. Cavil, on the women's side with Shaw and Virginia Union. And if you saw the end of that game was wild. Those last 3 minutes of that particular game. Let me take that back. The last 3 minutes of regulation and into overtime. And the one thing I want to say,
yeah, I love my HBCU, and boy, I love it, I love it, I love my HBCU, and man, I hope my team they won, yeah. I hope my team they won, yeah. Man, I hope my team they won, yeah. I hope my team they won, yeah. I tune into the HBCU Sports Lab to see if my team won or lost. If they lost, I'm quiet as a mouse. But if they won, keep tab. I'ma do the dab, yeah. Dr. Cavil, he know what he be talking about. Mike and Charles, they know what they be talking about. They compress the analytic data with this hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they won or lost, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
The honorary also exhibit during this period that defines the Cavil season, determination, diligence, integrity, performance, familial teamwork, fraternal, and community engagement. Our very own Jerry Owens was the recipient of the 2023 Mini Cavil HBCU Award. The Jerry Owens is
This is Dr. Mills inside the HBC Sports Lab. As we get started, episode 491. Welcome to episode 491 of Inside the HBC Sports Lab radio show and podcast, the show that's covering the sporting HBCU dashboard, all things HBCU sports, from institutions large and small, from the NEIA to the NCAA. We share insights and information on the HBCU sports culture, HBCU athletic aesthetics to facilitate the story of HBCU athletic programs in the business of HBCU sports. I'm your host, Dr. Cavil, along with my co-host, Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. I think Mike Washington is back on assignment as he's moving around, trying to get things done. We're filming from our home studios and sending a signal live, KSWA's 1230 AM studios with the Texas Radio Hall of Famer, multi-Hall of Famer, Ralph Cooper, in the beautiful home of Texas Southern University from Houston, Texas. With that being said, got to give a shout out to Mike. As we said, he's on assignment, but he had a chance to see his son, Bryce, score a winning overtime goal in lacrosse, getting it done, and he sent it to the group, Texas of Alphas out there. You could see that smiling little guy there, proud Papa, I was excited for him, godson and all. Just thinking about him getting it done, that was pretty cool, as I've seen him mature from playing baseball to getting into lacrosse, and now he's scoring a winning goal in overtime. Man, they were fired up, excited. You see that?
That was a heck of a goal. That was I kept looking at it, and I was like, that's Sports on top 10 worthy, the way he flipped in between the defenders and flipped in that goal there. I was like, that's worthy. I like that.
Certainly top 10 ESPN, if not top 10, there's number one on our show. With that being said, don't want to bury the intro that people are looking at and probably asking some great questions on. That was the Ladarius Owens. Many people recognize him. The running back, 5'9", 180 pounds, senior, from right here in Houston, Texas. Previous school was Manville, earning the award of the 2023 recipient of the Ben L. Cavil Senior Big Ben Award. You've seen our very own Charles Bishop presenting him the trophy, who is one of the curators over the program that we present in terms of the Ben L. Cavil Trophy. 2015 was when we inaugurated that in terms of 3C Communications and THG Agency. You saw actually the son of Ben L. Cavil Sr., so that would be Junior, as you would imagine, if you're looking at it to your left, obviously Charles on your right, and one and only Ladarius in the center, who obviously earned the award. Many accolades last 2 years. It stayed in Jackson, as all things were going on there with Shador getting the award the last couple of years. Bringing it back to Texas before that, the inaugural winner was straight out of Prairie View running back. But for those that are not familiar about this award and seen it around in whatever capacity, those that are watching the show are probably a little more familiar. This is an award named after a great, great, great uncle, if you would, 3 times great cousin, in terms of the family that played halfback is the term they like to use in terms of running back then. And then Wiley College in 1925 to 1929, 2 times All-American, second team, first team, won a national championships, won 4 SWAC championships under legendary coach Fred Long. In terms of out of the SWAC, that first decade when the SWAC was founded, just to give some framing for that. But the award is given to a player that is connected with the state of Texas, either played at a HBCU in the state of Texas, or was born high school player in the state of Texas that plays for a HBCU outside of the state of Texas. And this year, again, you had one and only Ladarius, whose accolades many people heard of, but just for those that don't know, Owens rewrote the TSU record book this past season. He finished with 3,114 career rushing yards while also setting a single season record. Get this, 1,370 yards. He also compiled 24 rushing touchdowns, which ranks 3rd all time in TSU history. In addition, he led TSU all time in all-purpose yardage with 4,310 yards. Charles, What were your thoughts in terms of great occasion? Got to do that between the men's and women's game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I tell you what, a tremendous honor for Ladarius, and thank you for allowing me to present that award in terms of recognition there for Ben Cavil. But I tell you, it was very funny listening to the Alcorn fans. They remember Ladarius very well. He had Texas Southern was playing Alcorn. I was like, yeah, I remember you. You deserve that award. But he had a huge game, and Texas Southern's upset of Alcorn. But tremendous young man who's preparing himself right now to try to play on the next level. So he was actually coming from one of those workouts yesterday to come back and accept that award and get an opportunity to fellowship with his former teammates. So he really enjoyed the process there. And it was good to give him that recognition. And like you said, the Ben L. Cavil Trophy comes back to the state of Texas.
It's pretty good with one of the Texas institutions getting it done. With that being said, you acknowledged Alcorn State fans. Kudos for winning both of those games there in terms of what it looks like. That was a big time matchup. Alcorn made a statement. We'll see what that means in the poll rankings. We'll save that a little bit as a tease, but appropriate. When you talk about those Brave fans, I give them a lot of kudos in terms of them recognizing and plotting what they saw Owens do this year and last year for that matter, but particularly in terms of records. So it's good to see HBCU fans that know how to celebrate their own, but also give recognition to others they see the credit, particularly in the SWAC. So great job in terms of what's going on there. With that being said, while we give out trophies now, we're talking about some trophies and championship trophies for teams, the coaches that were awarded. Which direction you want to go in terms of some of these championships that are coming off the books?
We'll start GCAC. You had a big upset over there. Tubu got knocked off. That was a huge win. When you take a look at Russ, Lady Bearcats got it done on the women's side, and
Orlando Smith on the men's side with part of that upset sneaking around there. We thought they might have a nice little matchup. But they cruised on through and got it done. So they'll be in the NIA tournament along with Russ. We got a championship game tonight, which featured Langston both on the men's and women's side. That's out of the Sooner Athletic Conference. That'll be interesting to see what that looks like. And so fascinating. Go back to the CIAA as I'm getting back off that trip. Boy, you talking about a full weekend. We didn't have a show. Leap year, part of that was because I was on the road doing my thing in CIAA country in Baltimore. Let me tell you, CIAA still knows how to represent. Anybody tell you anything else? Charlotte, I've been there. Baltimore, no. CIAA is certainly not dead. It's alive and well.
That's all right. I heard you did it big up there, Doc.
Yeah, don't tell them.
Yes, indeed. That's all right. We got some other interesting news that came across my feed, and this is great in terms of what Florida A&M was able to do. As the field, their softball field was formerly called the FAMU Softball Complex, was renamed the Veronica Wiggins Field in recognition of the FAMU and MEAC Sports Hall of Famer. You take a look at her storied career. 13 MEAC softball championships, competed in the 8 NCAA College Softball World Series regional playoffs, mentored numerous All-MEAC and All-American Hall of Fame athletes. So kudos go out to Veronica Wiggins in regards to the naming of FAMU softball field now. So that's big congratulations out in that direction.
Man, she did that little speech and had the folks fired up. Nobody comes in.
I did.
I was like, go ahead. Go. Had me want to pick up a softball bat. And, you know, I hadn't did that in a while.
That was all right.
That was real all right. Shout out to Lincoln. You know, they lost a stunner in the championship game, CIAA. This year they come back, and not necessarily regular season, preseason in terms of what they wanted to get done, non-conference schedule-wise. But when it counted, they pushed over and had a great game, where Fayetteville State was trying to do the double-double, if you would. but could not quite get it done as Lincoln rebounds from last year. And this time they cut down the nets on the men's side as they win 54-51 in the Thriller CIAA tournament championship game. With that being said, we said going into this that it was pretty much anybody's tournament. And you had some great matchups. But when you get 54-51 contest, going back and forth, free throws big at the end of that matchup for Lincoln, you got to give a lot of credit in terms of what that looks like. Lincoln was acknowledged as a champion in the official list of CIAA winners in 1915 with Howard and Hampton before the CIAA was officially formed, if you would. With the victory, Lincoln also secured a CIAA automatic bid to the NCAA Division II tournament. Lincoln will learn its opponent destination on Sunday, March 10th. That's along with the SIAC that's going on now. So it'll be fascinating to see what that looks like in terms of the seeding for the tournament. Kudos to Baker Cleveland, who added 13 points for the Lions, getting it done in so many ways. 16 threes in terms of what he get it done. So shout out to Lincoln Lions, the CIAA winning a championship there. On the women's side, you had the Lady Broncos. 2024 got to see the matchup when you talked about the fact we were looking to see if they get that proverbial matchup against Virginia State. It did happen, but it was in the semifinals. And short story, it was really no contest.
Wow.
Fayetteville State ran through this tournament. And their championship game was a little closer as they won 64-59. Well, they got it done as Fayetteville State beats Elizabeth City State. Lady Broncos went back-to-back championships as they are getting it done. And they should get a really nice seed in the NCAA Division II tournament on the women's side. It'll be interesting to see if Virginia State, as their overall record is solid, making it to the semifinals, so it wasn't an early bounce. And they did lose in the CIAA tournament to the eventual champions in terms of Fayetteville State, who obviously won the Southern Division, while Virginia State was second in the Northern Division. What are your thoughts?
So the balance of power has officially shifted over from Virginia State to Fayetteville State now, huh?
I believe so. When you get back-to-back and get it done, it's hard to argue anything else about what's going on. As you shouted out, Russ, I want to give him a little more love. Charles, you kind of shined over there. I want to make sure that you give the kudos to Russ Collins. They are three-time consecutive women's GCAC tournament. And as you talk about Fayetteville State making a statement over Virginia State, changing the guard. Well, that's not the case on GCAC. And we'll get into a little bit of the renaming at the end of the show, HBCU Athletic Conference, as people have heard about that. We'll save that for another segment. But Russ College gets it done. You talked about Philander Smith. Fascinated there. I want to give some love to Florida Memorial, since our producer obviously oftentimes takes about the state of Florida. When you talk about Florida Memorial, they won the Sun Conference on the men's side. So they'll be playing in the NAIA tournament. They got it done with the championship there. So shout out to Florida Memorial in terms of what they're getting done over there. Big wins, big championships. Florida Memorial's playing some good basketball. Any final thoughts before we take our first break, Charles?
So final thoughts, looking at the GCAC, we got Russ women, Dillard men. They'll be going to the NAIA tournament, but because Tougaloo won the regular season title, they also go to the tournament, correct?
I think it depends on the number of teams. I don't think they're at the threshold. That's the expansion. And since we listed the championship for the expansion and the GCAC goes to 13, I'm not sure if they're eligible yet in terms of the official start of those memberships. So I believe they'll have to be the Bulldogs there will be waiting, but I think they'll get a bid in terms of a large bid. But it is something to keep your eyes on, along with Xavier at the Red River Athletic Conference, both the men's and women's. The Xavier got upset pretty early in that tournament. Women, I think, made it to the semifinals of that matchup. So I believe both of those teams should be in terms of what that looks like. So it'll be interesting to find. But that is a nuance that is unique about the NIA tournament. you win your regular season or make it to, if you have a number of teams, 12 or more, I believe, your conference actually gets 2 bids to the NIA tournament. So unique. Going in the opposite direction you see in the NCAA when you talk about the NIT, when they're taking away automatic bids to the tournament, which is fascinating in so many ways. Tells you a lot about how these organizations operate.
March 5th, we are officially in March Madness. So put
the stake in.
It has started.
We'll see that. Let's take our first break, come back on the other side, and get into some of these poll rankings to see what Charles thinks about this week. There was some changes. We'll save a lot of that for the major division where it really flipped over on its head. But even the other programs got a couple of changes in some ways, some fashion, whether it's teams receiving votes, re-ratings at the top. But we'll see officially what it looks like. We'll start with the women right after this break. Stick with us.
Since 2002, Empowerment Resources, Inc., a nonprofit organization, has empowered more than 1,500 youth and adults in Duval and surrounding counties. Through its programs, Journey into Womanhood, Girls Mentoring, Life Skills for Teens, and Parenting Education Coaching. To get involved with programs, volunteer, or donate, visit www.empowermentresourcesinc.org. Follow us on social media, facebook.com/empowerment.resources and instagram.com/empowermentJAX.
The human voice has always connected audiences with experiences. Major brands all across America have trusted Kever's voice time and time again. Conversational, powerhouse, intelligent, and sincere. That's the voice you need for your creative marketing process. KEAVERSVOICE.com. Kever's Voice, Kever's Voice, KeversVoice.com. Always on, all the time.
Nope. Nope.
Come on, him?
Ooh, I like him.
Quick, the quicker picker-upper. Bounty picks up messes quicker, and each sheet is 2 times more absorbent, so you can use less.
He's an 8.
He's a 9.
Bounty, the quicker picker-upper.
From novice to aficionado, find yourself here. High quality cigars plus personal customer service. Slow Burn is Waco's only mobile cigar lounge, featuring a meticulous, curated collection of premium cigars. Visit our website, www.slowburnwaco.com. That's www.slowburnwaco.com.
Press the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna loud, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Bill's Inside the HBC Sports Lab. Let's get into week 9. We're getting closer to March Madness, which means the end of basketball. Oh man, college-wise that is. We will have several champions that will rise. With that being said, let's look at those teams dropping out. No real changes in the top 5. As you see, you don't have a mid-major women dropping out this week, but you do have those teams receiving votes. Savannah State Tigers 19-5, 15-4. Miles Lady Golden Bears are 20-6, 15-4 in terms of the conference race. It'd be fascinating to see what these teams look like. They're in the middle of this SIAC, which is a long tournament. It starts Sunday and doesn't end to Sunday when you think about the length of that tournament. But these teams that you'll hear about in the top 5, if you would, and some receiving votes, they really won't kick off until Wednesday, Thursday, as the teams outside of that are playing in the tournament or those lower seeds get it going, starting both on the men's and women's side of the SIAC tournament. With that, let's get in the top 5 and start this in terms and give you some information of who was winning, what they look like in those things. Xavier Gold Nuggets out of Louisiana, as you know, are 25-6, 19-3. They stay at number 5. They did have a loss this week. That was in the Red River Athletic Conference. They had 2 wins in that tournament as they were 2 wins and a loss this week. At number 4, Langston Lions, 24-6, 17-5. Remain at number 4, 2 wins in the Sooner Athletic Conference. Be interesting to see what they look like moving forward in terms of that rate. At number 3, Virginia State Lady Trojans, 23-5 in terms of what that looks like there. 60 points, number 3. As I say that, actually Virginia State is number 4, and Xavier, I should say, is number 3. As there are slight updates in terms of those two teams flipping positions a little bit there. Let's go to number 2 on the list. No changes, no surprise here. Fayetteville State, the Lady Broncos, are 27-2, 17-1. 3 first place votes, 75 points. Can't find a way to crack and take away some of those votes for number 1, who won 3 big games in their tournament, much like Fayetteville State. The Russ Lady Bearcats, 28-3, 17-1. 5 first place votes, 71, 77 points. First place. It'd be fascinating to see a matchup between those two teams. Yes, I know one is NCAA Division II, the other one is NAIA, and they will be chasing respective championship in their associations at the Division O level, I should say. But it'll be fascinating. But kudos to Russ Lady Bearcats, the players, the coaches, as well as Fayetteville State Lady Broncos are getting it done. Fascinating when you look at the women's mid-major. Slight changes in terms of flipping 3 and 4, but nothing really there, nothing to get you too emotional there, Charles. But you may have a thought or two. Let me know what your thoughts are.
Yeah, well, I think the big thing about the Rush Lady Bearcats, I mean, they've established a little dynasty over there in regards to what they've been able to do 3 years in a row, GCAC champions, young lady Diamond Sweats, young lady from Dallas, Texas, tournament MVP. And I remember AD talking about this matchup last week in terms of, you know how he loves to see chaos, but he wanted to see this matchup between Russ and Fisk. Fisk had a young lady, Maya Buchanan, who was one of the top scorers in the league. And when you have 2 marquee matchup players meet in the championship game, you expect fireworks. But I mean, Russ got it done in very dominant fashion, 67-39. They held Maya Buchanan only 9 points. So kudos to Eric Jackson. He is really getting it done up there in Holly Springs, Mississippi.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Championship game, Charles. Langston was number 2. At, as we said, 17-5, 11-2, but Sooner Athletic Conference, they finished behind John Brown, number 1 in the conference, 22-0 in terms of league play, 27-3 overall, highly ranked. But Langston is right there at 24-5. Should be an intriguing matchup for the championship tonight. Any thoughts in terms of this game? That's an 8:00 matchup on the women's side. Fort Worth, Texas, for the Sooner Athletic Conference Championship Tournament prime. Both teams will be in the NAIA tournament.
Yeah, both teams are going to be in the NAIA tournament, so I'm looking forward to this matchup to see who comes out on top. Like you mentioned, Langston, they've been number 2 team in your poll. Whew. I think
Can they get the upset? Can they get the upset?
Yeah, that's the question.
Shock the world.
Upset tonight?
Oh, yes. Shock the world.
Yeah, that's going to be huge. Can they shock the world? Let's go with Langston. Let's see what happens. Let's see if they can get it done tonight.
Let's go with it. It'll be interesting to see when you talk about you thinking that you have probably 3 NIA programs, if you would, in the tournament, NIA tournament for the women's side. You might sneak in a 4th one, but I think you asked a little bit much there. I think you're pretty secure to get 3 teams in the NIA tournament for the championship. What are your thoughts about that? You see 3 or 4 bids for these HBCUs in this on the women's side of the NIA tournament.
It'd be nice to get 4, but I'll take 3. I'll settle for the third for at least 3.
What about on the Division II inside? I mean, on the women's side, you're looking at Fayetteville State. You guarantee that. Obviously, the tournament, SIAC. You got a couple of teams that are looking for bids. Miles, Kentucky, maybe in the mix. Savannah State Tigers, 19-5, have a pretty good record. Non-conference, not so much, so that may stick in some people's craw in terms of the rankings there. So I guess the question, you're going to get at least one out of both the CIAA, SIAC. Can you get 4 teams in the Division II on the women's side. Can you get Virginia State in at 23-5? I would think you could get them in.
That's a good record to get in. Yeah, 23-5.
If Miles doesn't win the tournament, can they get in over Kentucky?
The question, at least for me with Miles, is how strong a tournament would they have to have? Would they need to at least get to the conference championship game?
That's a good question.
Mm-hmm.
I'd probably say you're right. They probably need to get there. If they don't win it, they need to get in the championship. For that matter, you're probably looking at whether it's Savannah State, Miles, Kentucky. One of those 3 teams cut down the net, obviously get out of it. The other 2 that are fighting for it, they have to find a way to get to that finals game against another one of the top teams that's going to win it. Upsets tend to happen in the SIAC. That's really going to throw things off in terms of that. If you get an upset, you probably do get 2 teams. One of those teams will find a way to get in if you get somebody off the radar. But then the other 2, that's going to take a bit away from them for sure if there's an upset in the tournament.
SIAC championship is being played in Savannah, correct?
Correct.
Ooh. Savannah State Lady Tigers. Yeah, can the Savannah State Lady Tigers make a little run here at
home court? Yeah. Well, that's my other little point I was going to get out there in terms of what that looks like. Fascinating to see as those games continue to get going. With that being said, overall thoughts on NCAA Division II basketball on the women's side. This overall season thus far, good, bad, and different. Where are you with the way basketball?
Anytime you get to 20 wins, that is saying something. And when you take a look at the poll, I mean, that says quite a bit. I mean, you got Russ sitting there with 28 wins, only 3 losses, 17-1 in conference. But just going down the list, Fayetteville State 27 wins, Langston 24 wins, 23 wins for Virginia State, Xavier another 25 wins. It's been a strong season. And then you talk about the other teams that are sitting right there. If they can have a strong run this weekend, I'm sorry, over the next few days with regards to Savannah State and Miles. So it's been a better year.
I like it. Great points you're making there when you have 7 teams already with 20 wins.
Mm-hmm.
8 teams with 20 wins. And you got Savannah, Kentucky. If they win 1 game in the tournament, they're at 20. So you literally could have 10 teams on the women's side between NIA and Division II with 20 wins on the season. I like that. With that being said, let's take our second break. We'll come back on the other side, talk a little bit about the mid-major division on the men's side. Stick with us. Be right back after this break.
Itchy, squirmy, scratchy, family not getting clean? Get Charmin Ultra Strong. Go get 'em. It just cleans better. With a diamond weave texture, your family can use less while still getting clean.
Goodbye, itchy squirm.
Hello, cream bottom.
We all go. Why not enjoy the go with Charmin?
At Hampton Law, our primary goal is to provide non-traditional yet effective solutions and redefine the approach to client legal concerns. As your trusted legal advisor, we believe in sophisticated, personalized services that eliminate the confusion and complexity sometimes associated with legal matters. Our high standard for client care and concern, coupled with our extensive legal knowledge and skills, make Hampton Law a resource focused on the protection of the client's interest and overall goals. We value our clients and truly enjoy working with them. Visit thamptonlaw.com to conveniently schedule an appointment online. Tamika Hampton Esquire, 1631 Rock Springs Road, Suite 336, Apopka, Florida, 407-494-1471. thamptonlaw.com.
Nope. Nope.
Come on, him?
Ooh, I like him.
Quick, the quicker picker-upper. Bounty picks up messes quicker, and each sheet is 2 times more absorbent, so you can use less.
He's an 8.
He's a 9.
Bounty, the quicker picker-upper.
From novice to aficionado, find yourself here. High quality cigars plus personal customer service. Slow Burn is Waco's only mobile cigar lounge, featuring a meticulous, curated collection of premium cigars. Visit our website, www.slowburnwaco.com. That's www.slowburnwaco.com.
When it comes to professional learning, teachers deserve better. From the leader in online learning, Stride brings you the Stride Professional Development Center, an on-demand library of mobile-friendly courses that gives teachers choice and flexibility, allowing them to learn anytime and anywhere. Our dynamic courses provide bite-sized learning and help educators advance their knowledge while also gaining professional development hours. It's time you take charge of your learning. Visit us today to get started.
Compress the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna loud, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Bill's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Mike is still on assignment. With that being said, let's get into the mid-major division on the men's side in week number 9. Those teams dropping out this week, a couple of changes. Xavier Gold Rush drops out with 22 wins. They had 2 losses. The final week, they did have a win in there, but they had 2 losses, including an early loss in the Red River Athletic Conference. We'll see that cost them in terms of bid for the tournament. Tougaloo Bulldogs, as Charles mentioned earlier, lost as well in terms of the GCAC, which will be the HBCU Athletic Conference starting in July. They drop out with 23-6, 15-3. They lost the opening round, quarterfinals, major upset in that tournament there. But look at the teams getting votes. And I'm going to go a little deeper than what's on the poll because I just want to let Charles know, as I asked him on the women's side, the type of basketball is being played, number of wins, just how deep it goes with those conceivably receiving votes that I generally leave off. But as we round out stuff and start to finish these things off, I want to give a credit to some of these teams going down there. But the ones we're looking at, Tougaloo Bulldogs, 23-6, 15-3, they're still receiving votes. First team outside of that top 5. At number 7, essentially, would be Texas College Steers, 22 and 8 on the season, 16-5. In terms of what they got, actually 17-5, I should say, with 22 votes there. Also, you have Benedict Tigers, who can add on to this because they're in the tournament, 21-6, 15-6 out of the SIAC. Morehouse Maroon Tigers, great season they had out there in that heck of the East Division. They're not even in the top 5, Charles. They're at 19-9, 16-5. They get a chance with another victory to get to 20 wins on the season. You had that Xavier Gold Rush. They fall all the way behind Benedict and Morehouse in terms of previous being in 5 with those losses. They're at 22-7, 17-5. Talladega Tornadoes, 22-7, 10-4. And Lincoln, Pennsylvania Lions, they won a championship out of the CIAA, 17-13, 10-7, behind all those teams looking out to try to figure out what the season is. Let you know the depth of basketball being played between the NCAA Division II and the NIA HBCU programs, particularly NIA, is deep this year in terms of some quality programs. I'll be fascinated to see how many teams get bids on the men's side that may be even deeper than what we've seen on the women's side that are certainly playing good basketball in their own right. Let's do it without further ado. We got 2 new teams enter the top 5 at number 5 with 3 big wins this past week, particularly 2 in the tournament. Philander Smith Panthers, 21-8, 14-4, 45 points, not ranked. They do cut down the nets, and they are represented out of the GCAC as they get it done. You have Florida Memorial Lions at 21-8, 14-4. They were not ranked. 2 big victories in their tournament, the Southern Conference. Florida Memorial is ranked 25 as they were receiving votes previous week, but in terms of the national poll rankings, they are in the poll ranking. They beat that St. Thomas, Florida team that was ranked 21. That was also receiving votes the previous time they released the NIA poll on the 28th. So both of those teams in the top 25 in terms of Florida Memorial. As we continue to go, we got Clark Atlanta Panthers, 22-5. They shared the East Division Championship with Morehouse, 16-5, 64 points. They remain at number 3, along with Miles Golden Bears, who ended the season with some great wins. They're in the tournament, 20-5, 15-4, and they've dominated the SIAC tournament. It's been theirs. Can one of those teams in the East that we've watched all year long get it done? Clark Atlanta had to travel to Miles that final week, it seemed like, in the season. And Miles said, not so fast in terms of what y'all doing in the East. We got something to say. So it'll be fascinating watching this tournament, SIC, especially when you get into some of these matchups that start featuring these top 5 programs. I will be watching. With that being said, the king of the jungle, Langston Lions, 29-1, 21-1, all 8 first place votes, 80 points. They're playing for a championship tonight in the Red River Athletic Conference. As that is going on at 5:30. Get some little updates there. They played Mid-American Christian, 23-7, and that basically went chalk as you have number 1 versus number 2, as we talked about on the women's side. Fascinating to see what that looks like. Just big time programs. Mid-American out of Kansas is ranked 10th in the poll, while Langston in their national poll is ranked 2nd. Behind Grace, we heard where they lost. And I told you the way the NIA does their poll, they do it every 2 weeks. And I thought that would give a chance for Grace to kind of right the ship, much like Langston did after they lost. When you get a chance to have a couple of weeks, you don't get that quick turnaround in voters that may have dropped and put Langston up there. But Langston does have 3 national first place votes, while Grace out of Indiana has 17. Both of the teams are obviously in the tournament. It'll be good to see Langston where they're seated, what that looks like. But in terms of our HBCU poll ranking, no changes here. Langston is number 1 with all 8 first place votes, unlike on the women's side where there might be a little question in there. But some other programs that have a little more basketball, can they find a way to catch up against Langston? As Langston looks to be in the NIA tournament for a while, we'll see what it means. But you got some teams that are looking forward to being in the NCAA tournament, along with Lincoln. Pennsylvania and CIAA, you got a couple of teams where you think the SIAC may get multiple bids. But before we talk about that, Charles, what are your thoughts in terms of the top 5?
Langston being the leader in the clubhouse, deservingly number 1. I'm really curious about the SIAC tournament in terms of, do we get the AD Drew chaos that he loves to see, or do we get basically coordination to the championship game? Because everybody would love to, I think, see Clark and Miles lock horns again. That would be, I think, a great game, especially when you take a look at a player like Chris Martin. He's averaging 18 points a game for Clark. Alvin Miles, 15 points a game for Miles. But the thing that stands out, Miles is the number 1 defensive team in the SIAC. Can you figure out a way to keep that Clark offense down? They're, if I'm not mistaken, 3rd in the SIAC in terms of total offense. So it'll be a fascinating matchup to see what exactly happens, or who might be my dark horse. Would Benedict be my dark horse in this SIAC tournament? They played consistent ball, but they aren't Clark. They're not Morehouse. So do we get the chaos? I'm looking for at least we saw some chaos over there in the GCAC. Do we see the same thing with the SIAC?
No doubt about it. With that being said, what are your thoughts about Florida Memorial and Philander Smith jumping into the top 5?
They played great ball all season. 20 wins for both of them, 21 wins on the season, deservedly jumping in, especially when you had some teams that kind of got knocked off going into the tournament last week. So kudos to Philander Smith and Florida Memorial.
Yeah. Be interesting to see on the NAA side in terms of the number of teams that get bid. If you're just looking at the top 25, you only see HBCUs in the program. Those are far gone conclusions in terms of them getting bids, but we're going to be looking to see what happens with the GCAC. Can they get a team or 2 in? Obviously, you got the champions, Philander Smith. They should be good in terms of their bid. But what does this mean for Tougaloo, the Bulldogs, in terms of the questions little concerned about. I would think they're getting a bid in, but we know that we've seen stranger things since then. And then it kind of depends on what's going on in some of these other tournaments. So there's a lot more upsets that starts to shrink the pool for those at-large bids. We will have to see. With that being said, we'll turn the page, come back on the other side, and get into the major division of the women's. We've had two teams that already have claimed the championship in terms of regular season, SWAC and MEAC. So we'll see where those teams end. They've been holding it down all season long. We'll see if there's any change in the top of the major division for the wins after this break.
If you think all pads are exactly the same, think again. This is Always Ultra Thins reinvented with the Always Triple Protection System. This pad wicks gushes 90% faster, absorbs even more so you can feel dry, and locks odors in. Rethink your pad for up to 100% leak-free and odor-free comfort with the totally reinvented Always Ultra Thins. This is always like never before.
The Cavil Group is a Florida-based marketing and training consulting firm. We help businesses communicate to their target audience and engage them in conversation. We also help to expand their audiences, which will ultimately result in growth for those organizations. In addition to being a certified constant contact specialist, my colleagues and I are also certified in John Maxwell Leadership Principles. We use these proven principles to conduct workshops, training, and private coaching sessions for individuals and companies looking to take things to the next level. Contact us to schedule a free consultation. Issues today, don't delay, call Cavil.
Compress the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna lose, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
Let's get into the major division for the women and see how things have changed this week. Not much change, so teams at the top just seem to keep winning. We'll see what that looks like. We did have a regular season championship crown. We had a couple of ones that went up for the crown. We'll let you know what that looks like. No one dropped out this week. You have those receiving votes. UAPB Golden Lions seem to have righted the ship as they got a couple of wins after the incident that happened with them. They're at 16-3, 11-3. We'll see what that all means as we get ready for the tournament. Southern Jaguars, 13-14, 11-5. They had two big wins this past weekend, kind of right the ship after they took that tough loss to Grambling State. They're back in the business. And just outside of this, give a little kudos to Alabama. My wife's school, Alabama A&M Bulldogs, sit at 15-13 and 10-6 behind Southern, if you would. Let's look at the top 5 programs. You have number 5, Howard Bison, with 2 big wins as they continue to push forward. 13-14 overall, 10-3 in the conference races in the MEAC as they prepare to see if they can settle down on their seeding in terms of what that will mean for the MEAC tournament. At number 4, you have North Carolina A&T State Aggies, 18-9, 12-4. If you recall, last time we spoke about this, we were looking at that Sunday matchup when they took on Seabrook over there out of the Coastal Conference. They took a tough loss, and it was 3 points, 2 points every quarter that added up to a double-digit loss in terms of that match. The Aggies could not get it done on the road there as they fall to 18-9. But they remain at number 4 in the poll ranking. At number 3, Grambling State Tigers. I'm not sure if we talked enough about Grambling State all year long. Now, maybe they're finally starting to get the kudos. People are recognizing first-year coach, 19-8, 13-3, 62 points. They remain at number 3, but they're right on the cusp of getting 20 wins. And that's to close out the regular season before they even get in the tournament. Can they make a run? They played interesting against Jackson State for a little while in that game. Can they get to a neutral site and find the magic we saw Southern find last year in the semifinals? But with that being said, let's get over to these champions. At number 2, Norfolk State Spartans clinched the 3rd consecutive championship in the MEAC regular season, 23-5, 12-1, won first place vote, 73 points, Some people out there have a number one. I have a number two in the poll rankings. I can see to make that argument. But State Tigers just continue to play basketball. I think the problem you have is that early loss by Spartans in the conference play, and Jackson just continued to win. So they had a chance to jump Norfolk the time they had their conference loss, and they just won't relinquish it because they don't lose. Jackson State Tigers, who clinched another regular season champion, and you thought they're getting it done in Norfolk. This is 5 for Jackson State. Give me 5. Jackson State 5. I don't know whatever you want to call it. Jackson 5. Jackson State 5. Tigers 5 in a row regular season. Just amazing. Kudos to Coach Tamika Reed. She's rewriting the history books there at Jackson State. Proud women's program, so it's not anything that you can talk about before. Obviously, some other illustrious programs, Alcorn State, in terms of what they were able to do with women's basketball. We've seen it with tournament championships at Prairie View and things of the like. But Jackson State is the toast of the town, rightfully so, particularly in the SWAC, 21-6, 16-0, 7 first place vote, 79 points, remaining the number one as they just continue to roll. Boy, it would be fascinating to see a matchup between Jackson State Tigers and the Norfolk State Spartans. I know it's not to be. I know it's not to be. In terms of that matchup, but we can't all dream. Charles, what do you say about the women's top 5?
Very on point. When you take a look at what Norfolk State has done, I think you hit the nail on the head. I don't think we've talked enough about Grambling State this season. They've won 8 in a row. For any, you're talking about Jackson State has kind of run things for a second or two with regards to what they've done. Tamika Reed, I believe, 81-4 in conference play during her tenure there. But this Grambling team has really come on strong. Interestingly enough, head-to-head matchup with regards to Jackson State and Grambling. It was probably Jackson State's closest margin of victory this season. They only beat Grambling 71-63. And it was very interesting about Grambling is they get it done defensively. They're one of the top defensive teams in the league, and they don't have a top scorer in the top 15 in the SWAC. So very much they play team ball. Got an opportunity to watch them up close when they came out here. Of course, play Texas Southern. Very impressive looking team. But when you're talking about this Jackson State team, I mean, they really check the boxes. They have tremendous guard play this season. You got Angel Jackson down low that really controls things in the paint. They get great bench help, get great minutes off the bench. This is one of the more powerful Jackson State teams that I've seen in quite some time.
Good stuff there, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. Fascinating when we talked about those 20-plus win seasons. Threshold and the NIA level, well, we got 2 of them already in the major division with Norfolk State and Jackson State. But you have Grambling State. They have a good chance to get to 20 wins. A&T would have to win 2 teams in the tournament. Yeah. They get there. And I think Golden Lions have an outside shot. They have a tough one. They got the Jackson State this weekend, and it's in Jackson. You got the proverbially maybe let down. I'm not too sure about that. But then they take on Alcorn. Let's say they split that. They get to 17. They would have to win the tournament to get to 20. So it's going to be tough for them to get to 20, but there's a good chance that you get 14 realistic to get to 20 wins this season.
Yeah, you mentioned letdown. Great wake-up call last night, Jackson State and Prairie View. That game doesn't really tell you. The score looks like it was a 10-point a game, but it was much closer going down the stretch. I think Jackson State hit some free throws down the stretch to kind of stretch the lead out, but whenever they go to Prairie View, that is always a dogfight. So.
Yeah, to your point, we were watching the game last night in between you preparing to hand over the trophy for the Big Ben Award in regards to Ladarius Owens. You got down there that score was 3 points, and you keep your eyes on it. I don't think people understand how you watch these various games, whether it's the scores and the tickers, which give you some good updates if you know where to follow them. You get basket plays, free throws, fouls, and things of that nature. And then obviously you got some of those games on ESPN Plus, some on YouTube. And both of us watched that. But as that was going down the stretch, it was 3 points. You pointed it out. Got to 1 point in that matchup. It was 4 minutes. I say, Charles, hit me back when it was about 30 seconds. And I don't say that in terms of not giving Prairie View kudos, to your point. They played them gamefully at home and really tested them. But it's just something in regards to Jackson State. The women down there, they know how to win. And so you really have to push them all the way. You can, and they'll let you at times maybe get plays and leave stuff. But when they smell it and it gets to the end, they got to make plays to get that W. They seem to find a way to get it done. So fascinating to see what that looks like. Shout out to Fire giving us a little update in terms of what he thought in that matchup in so many ways. So with that being said, let's take our next break. We'll come back on the other side and talk about the men side of things in the major division, where everything took place. It was chaos. With that, we'll be right back after this break.
As technology continues to bring changes to the world of education, it's time we also reimagine teacher professional development. Gone are the days of one-size-fits-all learning that can only be accessed at a specific time and place. The Stride PD Center is an on-demand library of mobile-friendly courses that allow educators to learn anytime and anywhere. Our dynamic courses provide bite-sized learning and help educators advance their knowledge while also gaining professional development hours. The best professional development plans are those that include a level of flexibility and choice for educators. Whether you're a teacher, school, or district, visit us today to take charge of your learning.
Compress the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna love, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Lills inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop. Professor Bishop, let's get into the top 5. I think I might grab your attention with this. There was some changes. 3 teams dropped out of the poll ranking this week in terms of the men's division. That was Texas Southern, as they went 1-1 this past weekend. Tennessee State Tigers, as they close out their season, they're getting ready for tournament play this week in the OVC. They took 2 L's at 17-14 and 10-8. They fall out the poll ranking. And then you have North Carolina Central Eagles that took an L as well, fall to 16-12, 8-5. So you see teams that have winning records that fall out, and you see some teams that jump in here with less, but they are teams that are extremely hot. So we'll see if they can stay hot, stay in the top 5, or with these teams that have been carrying the top 5 all year long. We'll see if they stay in the mix. But I'm fascinated to see what that looks like in so many different ways. So teams receiving votes, all those teams that you see: North Carolina Central Eagles 16-12, Tennessee State Tigers 17-14, Texas Southern Tigers 15-15 in terms of the match. Also receiving some votes outside of that, Southern Jaguars at 17-12 as they split this weekend. Yeah, Bethune-Cookman Wildcats is split one of those games against Southern 15-15, 10-7. So it's getting messy in the SWAC. We'll see what that looks like going down the stretch, as you have some teams that have 1 game left with their rivalry and some games that have 2. You have seedings on the line in some areas throughout the conference. It looks like everything's mapped up on the men's side. I think those teams on the outside looking out, safely out. You do have that AFC that people are trying to make sure they jockey for in terms of what that looks like with Valley and Prairie View being out of the mix along with FAMU. With that being said, let's look in the top 5 as we get it going. Alcorn State Braves jump into the top 5 this week as they are 12-17, 11-5, but they are hot as fish grease, as people would say in these parts. They've won 7 straight, went down to match playing another hot team, Texas Southern, that had won like 4 games straight. They controlled that matchup for much of the game. But Texas Southern, at home, they're going to fight. They pulled it back and actually had a 3-point lead with a minute left in that game. Braves got it done. Good defensive stance, rebound, fast break, bring it into 1, a foul, take the lead. And then they stretch it out to 3 points as you have that late foul after a missed shot and a desperation heave, essentially, for Texas Southern would not be to try to tie it. They're going to take it at overtime. So the Braves, they will try to close out on this last run to get it done. It'll be fascinating to see what that looks like as they have 2 games left on the ledger, sitting at 11-5 in the conference race. Currently tied for second. Man, this was a team 7 wins ago that you were like, I can't see
it. Yeah, didn't see it.
At number 4, South Carolina State. Talk about another team that you may not be able to see. Yes, that's South Carolina State that everybody literally left dead. Coach left 2 years ago. A couple of players tried to go. Well, they back in the mix, and you talking about a team that is hot. They're sitting at 14-6, 19-4. They've taken down both of the teams, multiple teams that are at the top of the conference standing. They've won 5 straight, and they are tied for second in the MEAC, 1 game behind Norfolk State Spartans in terms of what that looks like. Norfolk State Spartans on the men's side has at least guaranteed themselves a share of the regular season crown. So kudos for Norfolk State to continue to get it done. This is after they lost 4 of their top scorers. But we'll see what that means in terms of their ranking. Right now, let's get to number 3, which is none other than Howard Bison. 15-15, 9-4. We remember back when we were watching them in the Chris Paul Classic. Texas Southern got a big win over Howard. I was at that game. Player got hurt, stumbled early in the conference race, but they've righted the ship. And they've won 4 straight. And they, again, are tied with South Carolina State in second place, 1 game back of those Norfolk State Spartans. Howard actually beat Norfolk earlier. So it'll be fascinating when you talk about these last 2 games in terms of what that looks like. In this case, the last game for Howard, it'll be fascinating to see where things go in terms of that matchup. And number 1, new number 1 this week, at number 2, Norfolk State Spartans, as they fall from the number 1, as I was saying, 20-10, 10-3, 5 first place votes. They did take an L this past weekend as the MEAC is just challenging week to week night. Even though they have a share of the championship, they lost that Saturday. They took a loss to Delaware State that beat them up at home pretty badly, 85-71, which is part of the reason they fall out. But Grambling State Tigers, who've won back-to-back SWAC regular season champions, played for the SWAC tournament championship, couldn't get it done against Texas Southern that just has control of the SWAC tournament on lock, it seems like. We'll see if that changes this year. Can Grambling State get over the hump and, finally, a team that really have won a NAIA championship, but they've never won and made it to the NCAA tournament? Well, you got a hell of a coach now with some great players that are knocking on that door. Can they kick it down? We shall see. 16-13, 13-3, 6 first place votes. They overtake Norfolk, and they are our new number 1 late in the season. At week number 9, can they hold on, get it done? We shall see. Charles, new number 1 this week. 3 new teams in the top 5. This is the one that I had all y'all waiting for. Things changed on the men's side. Good basketball being played. It's going to be fascinating to see. Only 1 team with the 20-win season. With some teams outside of that are looking at knocking down that door. We shall see what that looks like. Charles, what do you say about the major division of the men in week number 9?
I mean, this is fascinating to look at when you take a look at the change. I mean, you talk about teams coming down the backstretch. You didn't see them, but all of a sudden, there they are right there in the thick of things when you talk about Alcorn. That's a huge win last night at Texas Southern. Texas Southern, one of the hottest teams in the SWAC going into that game. But kudos to Alcorn for going into a hostile territory and getting a W. You mentioned South Carolina State. They've won 5 in a row now, and they have one of the top scorers in the MEAC. Howard, like you said, they've righted the ship. When you take a look at what they've done, they've won 4 in a row. Norfolk State right there in the mix, 20-win season already. Can South Carolina State Can North Carolina Central, can they come at the king? You know, that's sort of what we're looking at with regards to MEAC. But this Grambling State Tigers team, like you said, they've done it again. Regular season champions, and they do it from a defensive standpoint. I mean, just like the women's team, you do not have one of those top scorers in the top 15, I believe. I believe even if you look at the offensive statistics, Grambling is near the bottom in regards to offense in the SWAC. But they get it done from a team perspective defensively. They really make you work hard on the offensive side of the ball. And they've gotten it done again, 13-3 in conference play. It seems as though we've talked about everybody going down the stretch in this conference, and Grambling's been right there, to kind of consistent. So you got to tip your hats to Grambling for what they've done, another regular season championship. I can't say enough about them.
Before we get into this last break, come back and have your chance to do your question of the day. I want to talk about these Thursday matchups. No show, as we said, midterm examinations. We give people to get a chance to get their work in there this week before folks go on spring break next week and get into the tournaments. You have South Carolina State and North Carolina Central. I told you in terms of the standings, you have South Carolina State at 9-4, but you have North Carolina Central at 8-5. So that is important in terms of seeding. Remember, South Carolina State beat North Carolina Central early in the season. This is as Central had beat Spartans, and everybody was like, all right, the Eagles are back. Well, this is important in terms of what the seedings are looking like. You also have the Howard and Norfolk State game. You're talking about Howard can win this after they were left for dead. They get a share of the regular season championship. It won't affect the seedings because Norfolk has the win earlier. So Howard would have to win big in terms of being able to get the point differential to find a way to get that number one seed in the tournament. You also have Coppin State at Morgan State, Delaware State at Maryland Eastern Shore, and obviously the seeding is going to be fascinating in terms of matchups. The MEAC, more than any conference this year in terms of HBCU, is deep, but a lot of it is about matchups. Some teams just match up better against other teams. So it's going to be a fascinating tournament to keep your eyes on. I think anything can happen outside of Coppin State that is struggling. Even Maryland Eastern Shore, that's just 3-10. They've had some major wins in terms of in close games. So fascinating when you talk about that. So those are some of the key matchups to watch out in terms of Thursday. Going down the stretch in terms of the SWAC, Charles, you have Thursday and Saturday matchups. Thursday, you have Mississippi Valley State at Alcorn. You have Southern at Alabama State. Grambling at Alabama A&M. Arkansas Pine Bluff at Jackson State. That's Thursday. Saturday, you have all 12 teams playing, including some of your rivalry games to end the season. You have Mississippi Valley State at Jackson State. You have Arkansas Pine Bluff at Alcorn State that has a lot of seeding implications in terms of that matchup. You have Bethune-Cookman at FAMU. We can throw that out the window. We know how that goes. FAMU has won the last couple of home games quietly people hadn't paid attention to on the men's side. And Bethune-Cookman is looking to go in the tournament hot and trying to prepare their seeding in the mix. You have Grambling at Alabama State. Alabama State is fighting for that last spot with Pine Bluff, and they take on Grambling. Will Grambling rest his players? Will they try to make a statement? What does that look like? You have Southern at Alabama A&M. Prairie View and Texas Southern. Prairie View is out with the tiebreakers based on every scenario I have. Maybe something I missed. We'll see about that. But they take a Texas Southern team that had a loss that was trying to stay in the top of the conference. It's in Houston. That's going to be a fascinating matchup one way or the other. So those are some of your key takeaways in terms of the match. Grambling State, hot. This team out there with 5 besides Alcorn State Braves. As I said, they won 7 straight. Key matchups going down the stretch. Thursday, Saturday for the SWAC in some cases. Thursday for the MEAC. What are your thoughts?
The matchups that fascinate me are the Grambling Southern going to Alabama's this weekend, where especially have on the men's side, Alabama A&M, Alabama State, all fighting for that 8 seed. Pine Bluff right there in the mix. as well. So on the men's side, so that'll be a real fascinating watch because Pine Bluff is one of the top scoring team in the conference. They can't slow anybody down. They go to Jackson State on Thursday, so I'll keep a weary eye on that particular game, especially when you're talking about who will be in, who won't get in to the SWAC tournament. So that should be sort of fascinating going down the stretch. So yeah, those are the ones that are really keeping an eye on. And then Delaware State, I think, in North Carolina Central, that's another one on the men's side paying attention to. And the other one on the women's side, UAPB visiting Jackson State. There's just something there. It is what it is in regards to Don Thornton going against Tamika Reed. So will we see Zay Green in there?
Yeah, plus just not something to be there. Those two teams are tough. Pine Bluff still believes that they can win the tournament. Mm-hmm. And what better to make a statement in this? And as I said, if they can somehow get this upset, talk about the confidence going in the tournament.
Very much
and
so.
You put yourself in a position to get to that 20 wins, which is a statement in itself in so many different ways. So that's fascinating to see how we're going there. Coastal, William and Mary, North Carolina, as they start out the first round of their tournament on Friday, and you have Hampton versus Elon in terms of that matchup, something to keep you there. In the Ohio Valley, you have Tennessee State as they face off against South Indiana. That's a first round matchup in terms of those, just to talk a little bit about independent programs. Stick with us. We'll be right back after this last break. We have Charles with the question of the day. We'll call it Eve.
It's never too early to plant the seed, to share the tradition, and instill a sense of pride in your HBCU with your little ones. HBCU Pride and Joy Children's Boutique helps you share your school spirit with a wide selection of adorable kids apparel and accessories officially licensed from your favorite HBCU. Visit hbcupridejoy.com and follow us on all social media at HBCU Pride Joy on Facebook and Twitter.
Press the analytic data with the hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna law, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Bill inside the HBCU Sports Lab with the question of the day from Charles Bishop. Charles, what's your question on your mind?
No doubt. Let's take a look at it. GCAC, they usher in a new era, and they're set to become the HBCU Athletic Conference on July 1st, 2024. And I wanted to ask you, Doc, what does this rebrand, what does it mean for the GCAC? And what does it do for a conference as a whole when they sort of rebrand themselves into another identity?
First thing you're trying to do is create marketing space. Anytime you rebrand, you're trying to recapture a marketplace. Sometimes it's for the ability to merchandising. When you talk about some of the larger brands, they do it to change up their brand space to re-engage folks in terms of purchasing merchandise for their teams. And you see that at various levels. So that's something off the box that you can get out of that. And with a brand that is hot in terms of HBCU gear that's out there that a lot of people want to wear, think about putting it in terms of athletic context. Now you get some folks that wouldn't necessarily put on something about GCAC that would consider representing, if you would, HBCU Athletic Conference, which gets to probably my more important point. These are all just about all private institutions. You have the one public institution in terms of SUNO, Southern University of New Orleans. But outside of that, there are HBCU programs, private institutions, small in terms of when you look at their enrollment. So oftentimes in the landscape, they do not get the recognition when you consider the other four conferences, which in a lot of ways are historically Black conferences, as they started out as these historically Black conferences with all HBCU members, not to be named, but we all know them both at the Division II level, or CIAA, as well as the SIAC. And at the Division I level is the MEAC, MEAC, and the SWAC, SWAC, in regards to that. For those that may not realize, The GCAC conference did not start out as a all HBCU conference. In fact, historically, it was one of the first conference that became diverse in terms of having both what I refer to as historically white colleges as well as HBCUs, historically black colleges, as we all know the nomenclature to mean. But from that perspective, when you talk about it, when you had Hurricane Katrina devastated the programs in New Orleans with Dillard, Xavier, as well as Suno, a lot of those conferences, historically white colleges left. And so it was question of whether the GCAC would actually survive. And now it is thriving with the new name under the commissioner, Dr. Kiki Baker Barnes. Kudos to a lot of work that she is getting done with the HBCU AC. With that being said, you've seen the plug at the beginning of the show talking about Brian and AD. This past Sunday, you can go back and check that out on YouTube in terms of BCSN. You had a great interview, 2-part series in regards to AD. And she goes a little deeper in terms of why the name change. But those are some of the things that I think are important when you talk about people not necessarily correlating the GCAC as an HBCU conference. You don't get to talk. In some ways, I believe this will give a little more push and a nod to the collective of seeing the term HBCU Athletic Conference, because now, obviously, you have to recognize this conference as the HBCU conference. Is in their name. How can you not? And I think that's purposeful and important for these institutions that do not necessarily get the brand naming recognition that you see across the board in the 4 other conferences.
I'm curious as to the brainchild who thought to name specifically the HBCU Athletic Conference, because I take a look at the logo, I take a look at the brand identity, if you will, and like that was a very interesting thought to come up with HBCU conference.
I don't want to steal too much of the thunder in the interview because I really want folks to go check it out, but I think that's an engaging and important question. It wasn't stated per se, but the Commissioner, Dr. Kiki Baker Barnes, did talk about the fact that there were a lot that went in this, and they've been talking about this for a while. I believe she said over a year, maybe a year and a half, and they talked to all their constituency, which I thought was very unique and important. And certainly the best way to do a rebrand is make sure you have as many of the stakeholders, constituencies involved. So you talk about alumni, and you talked about presidents, key stakeholders on campus, obviously coaches, players, as well as students. And they all gravitated towards this name branding. And they brought in a professional marketing organization that happened to be a Black organization, which I thought was really intentional and fascinating. And that's across the country, Atlanta, California, with offices and a couple of other places in regards to that. And so you can go to there and get the actual name of that. So that was fascinating in a lot of ways to see what that looks like in terms of the branding. But at the end of the day, I got tipped back in November when Texas Southern University and Wiley College, as now they are Wiley University, they've actually went through a name change. President Felton over there was doing a partnership MOU between Texas Southern University and Wiley University, still Wiley College at that time, in regards to students that study at Wiley College, potentially that want to go to grad school, coming to Texas Southern University. Some articulation agreements are being branded in terms of students being able to start early and do what you would prefer or call a 4+1 in some ways, where they can use some of their senior classes or start grad classes here that will count towards their undergraduate study and finishing degree there. But in that conversation, I introduced myself. I thanked him as we had Ben L. Cavil Sr. Up for a Hall of Fame status with the SWAC. And I was thanking him for, as the Wiley University has to submit that information, thanking him for that. And he talked about Dr. Kiki Baker Barnes, because I brought it up to your point in terms of how much of a leader she's been. and he said they're gonna have a naming change. He told me some other schools were coming. He told me some of the names, but I'm not at liberty to say in terms of what they look like. But they're very excited. She talked about getting the 16. He talked about getting the 16, and I believe it's coming in terms of what that looks like, which means into pool play, divisional alignment, in terms of what that looks like. But ultimately, to answer your question, in terms of the brainchild, for the most part, it was a group effort, which I think is the best way to do it. So I'm fascinated to see where this goes. I can't wait to get my HBCU athletic conference gear. You know how I like to rep different things. So I'm fascinated. Kudos to Dr. Kiki Baker-Barnes. She's getting it done in a lot of different ways, particularly for institutions that do not necessarily get the brand recognition that they deserve and certainly want and need in regards to making those institutions what they are, which is one of the reasons we find a way to make sure we keep them in the mix in regards to sharing information about it at the mid-major level, whether it's football for some of the programs out there, but more importantly for men's and women's basketball, volleyball. And we got baseball coming up. That conference is grown in baseball with a lot of those institutions starting baseball programs, which is good to see, giving more young people opportunity to continue to play the game in college, helps them with their enrollment numbers. So I'm fascinated in terms of what took place there. With that being said, let's close it out. Great question of the day, Charles. Thank you for listening to Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Make sure you share our podcast with your friends and colleagues. I am Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, the Dean of HBCU Sports, coming from inside the lab in the College of HBCU Sports with Mike Watts and Charles Bishop. We hope you enjoyed the show. Again, we want to thank you for listening to Dr. Bill's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Watts and Charles Bishop every Tuesday. This week, we will not have a show on Thursday, as we're going to allow folks to do their midterms, get their business straight, and focus and watch some postseason HBCU tournament basketball, namely the SIAC. See if I can waggle my toe around there and get to Savannah as I went to Baltimore, kind of making my trips and ways around. We'll see what we'll do next week if I can find my way, maybe in between like I did last year, Charles, doing a little bit of both, Norfolk State and Birmingham. We're so lucky. I don't know. I might take my spring break and just take it off. We'll see how things go. Maybe the people will tell me where they want me to be. With that being said, finish up. We have obviously the Coastal with North Carolina A&T and Hampton in terms of men's and women's. We have the OVC this week finishing up. Championship today in terms of the Sooner Athletic Conference featuring both Langston, the men and women. So fascinating to see what that looks like. Follow me, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Not to belabor the point. That's DRKNYATTACAVIL. Inside the HBCU Sports Lab 1 on X, formerly known as Twitter. Facebook and YouTube is Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Dream big. Continue to move forward. We will talk with you soon. Charles?
Of course.
Roy?
Lecture.
Dismiss.